Hi, this is Mrs. Patten. I'm here today to give you a message about someone who wrote a hymn long ago. And also you might be thinking, why is Mrs. Patten dressed that way? Well, perhaps I miss Masters Club and our little parades, so feel free to stop this video and get on a beach, car, or summer outfit and then return to it. Or you can just stay here and listen. So today I'm going to be reading a short story about Adelaide Pollard. Adelaide Pollard sat in a church prayer meeting in 1902, a depressed and discouraged Christian. Her whole life had been spent in efforts to teach the gospel of Jesus Christ, and her heart's desire had long been to travel to Africa to minister to those who had never had an opportunity to hear such a message. Just when it seemed that things were falling into place for the accomplishment of this dream, she received word that her financial support had not been provided and she would not be going to Africa after all. To Adelaide, now 40 years old and still single, it seemed the final blow in a lifelong string of disappointments. She had gifts of teaching and writing, but had been unable to use them in the ways she most desired. She had great dreams and ideas for ministering tirelessly for the Lord, yet her body was plagued with weakness caused by diabetes. She despaired of ever accomplishing something fulfilling and meaningful. It was at this point that she decided to attend the prayer meeting, and she found herself sitting beside a frail and elderly woman who she had never seen before. As prayers were offered and requests were made for blessings, direction, and other gifts from the Lord, Adelaide sat in silence, unable to utter a prayer from her aching heart. It was then that the woman next to her offered a simple sentence that was to give Adelaide new hope. She said, "It really does not matter just what you do with us, Lord. Have your way with our lives." The words burned in Adelaide's mind. Suddenly, she realized her whole life had been spent pursuing her own goals, doing what she wanted to do for God, and taking little time to seek what He might have her do. As she walked home from the prayer meeting, her step had a wonderful new lightness. Arriving home, she opened her Bible to the Old Testament book of Jeremiah. In the first 4 verses of the 18th chapter, she read these words: "The word which came to Jeremiah from the Lord, saying, Arise and go down to the potter's house, and there I will cause thee to hear my words. Then I went down to the potter's house, and behold, he wrought a work on the wheels. And the vessel that he made of clay was marred in the hand of the potter. So he made it again another vessel, as seemed good to the potter to make it." Adelaide saw herself as the defective pot, needing to be broken and reformed by the master potter after his will. As she meditated upon this thought, the words of a hymn poem began to form in her mind. Before she went to bed that night, she had composed all 4 verses of the popular hymn, "Have Thine Own Way, Lord." It was after this turning point in her life that Adelaide Pollard's teaching and speaking ministry took on a new dimension. She worked for several years educating missionaries at the Missionary Training School at Nyack-on-the-Hudson. She also spent time as an itinerant Bible teacher and lecturer, and she eventually did have an opportunity to go to Africa shortly before World War I. When the war broke out, however, she went to Scotland and continued her missionary efforts there. At the end of the war years, she returned to the United States and traveled extensively in the New England states, teaching the Bible despite her failing health. On December 20th, 1934, at the age of 72, Adelaide Pollard died of a heart attack. True to the missionary zeal that marked her life, she was not at home in bed when this happened, but in a New York railway station, waiting to board a train for Philadelphia, where she was planning to speak. Although she wrote other hymns, Have Thine Own Way, Lord, is the only one still in popular use today. Perhaps that is fitting, for it was not only her philosophy of life, but her most accurate epitaph. So when reading this, what do we learn? I do have a picture of Adelaide here. So this is what Adelaide looked like. And here is a potter making a vessel. And often when we think of ourselves, we might think that we're not formed the way we would want to be, but we should want to be formed however God wants us to be. With Adelaide, her heart's desire was to be a missionary to Africa, but the reality of the situation was she had poor health and not enough financial backing. She could have given up, she could have walked away, but instead she went to a prayer meeting. And at that prayer meeting, she wasn't even strong enough to pray. But through the help of just one elderly lady saying, "It really doesn't matter just what you do with us. Lord, have your way with our lives," her life was changed. She thought about what she was doing, she examined her heart, and she turned to God and just wanted whatever He wanted. So how did God respond? She was able to teach other missionaries. She was able to travel, and He even gave her her heart's desire, and she did get to go to Africa. So when you think about yourself, how do you feel before God? Do you look at Him and say, I don't think I'm made the way I should be? Or do you say, God, make me the way you want me to be? We all have things we think about and things we want to do for God, but what we need to do is what He wants. If we would just give our heart to Him and say, maybe God, I messed up, it's time for you to remake me. God, I'm happy with who I am as long as I'm following you. Another thing I found out about Adelaide, which might tell you more about her, she wanted to do so much for God, but she wanted to do it her own way. I found out her actual name isn't even Adelaide. When she was a child, she decided, I don't like the name of Sarah. I want to be Adelaide. So that sort of shows if you're not content with what you have, you don't always need to change it. She wound up writing over 100 hymns, and she did not want any recognition for them. Most of them were simply signed AAP. So my challenge to you is to seek the Lord, to seek His will, and to just pour your heart out before Him. Follow in His steps so that He can guide you. And I hope you enjoy listening to the hymn afterwards. Have a good day.